Welcome to Talk Me Healthy. Each show, we invite a guest to explore a topic related to healthy living. They share their expertise and personal stories, and we learn from them how they turn their passion and knowledge into practical tips that you can use now to improve your health. I'm your host, Sherrie Keating, founder of Diabetes Care Consulting. My goal is that each show you will hear something that will motivate you to make a small but significant change towards living a healthier and happier life. Hello and welcome to Talk Me Healthy. My name is Sherrie Keating and I'm your host. On today's show, we're going to be talking to my guest, Kristen Hartness, the Executive Director of Canines for Disabled Kids, and she has her service dog, Asha. So I want to welcome you to the show and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you and to learn all about Asha and your story and how you became involved with Canines for Disabled Kids.
Thanks.
So, do you mind if we start with your story? Because you and I have had a chance to talk, and I know that you live with multiple sclerosis.
I do.
And this is why you have a service dog. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, I've had multiple sclerosis since I was 16 years old.
Okay.
I'm currently at a level called secondary progressive, which means that I'm always active and I'm always progressing in the level of deterioration that's going on. And that will probably happen the rest of my life. There's really no stopping it at this point. And it's about managing it and keeping it as slow as possible until more research shows up. Mm-hmm. But over the years, different symptoms have developed, different aspects of my life have been affected physically. And many years ago, a friend of mine said to me, hey, there's this new kind of service dog being tried by a local training program. Would you be interested? And I thought, why not? Why not? It hadn't really crossed my mind, but I was an active person. I wanted to remain an active person. I wanted to regain things that I was losing because of the way that my nerves were being affected with the MS. And I put an application in and I got one of their first really experimental dogs to be a weight-bearing dog. And it's been no stopping me since then. That I was partnered April 1st in 2001, and I've had this style of service dog ever since, and I'm not going back. So
good for you.
That's my nutshell story, I guess.
So, multiple sclerosis, can you tell me a little, I know it's a half-hour show, but can you just kind of sum up what multiple sclerosis is to educate the viewers and what kind of symptoms that you had and kind of the treatment modalities?
So, multiple sclerosis is this huge category of disability. It's basically, in a nutshell, and some experts might disagree with my nutshell, but this is how I like to explain it to people. My immune system thinks that my nervous system is a foreign body, and it's attacking it, and it sees specifically the sheathing that goes over your spinal column and protects. It's where the message travels as it goes through the nerves. The message travels through this material, and the nervous system is supposed to be safe in your body, but for some reason my immune system thinks that it's a virus. It thinks it's a foreign body, so it attacks it the way it would attack a flu bug or an infection.
So it's an autoimmune disease?
Yes, it's in the autoimmune category. Depending on where it's attacking you will depend on your symptoms. The symptoms people can have are completely across the board. In extreme cases, it can kill you. But the majority of people are in what's called relapsing remittent, which is the lowest level, where you have symptoms and then your body heals, and then you have symptoms and then your body heals. In my case, I'm the next level up, which means that my body's constantly really sliding a little bit. I have a very, very slow progression rate, which is fabulous. But for me, it's primarily the left side of my body that's affected. Some people are torso versus legs. Mine is really left versus right. It has resulted in me having reduced sense of touch. The majority of my body feels like my skin's asleep. So if you said to me, oh, feel this piece of silk, it's so wonderful, I really don't feel it the way you feel it. Feels like my skin is asleep. Not to the pins and needles stage, but really right before that, when I can't tell different things. I have cut myself, and until the cut gets deep enough, I actually I don't feel it, depending on where the cut happens. This affects fatigue levels are huge with MS for a lot of us with MS, where I just can't function on a 40-hour plus week. It doesn't happen. I need time to do rehab. I need time to rest my body physically. My left leg, I walk from my hip, which is really was the initiative for me to be looking at a service dog. I wear an AFO brace on the left leg to hold my foot in a flexed position. Without that, I have no control over my foot at all. My knee bends because I sat, not because I asked it to, on the left side. And so to walk for me, I walk like a weeble, right? I'll age myself. I walk like a weeble.
I know what a weeble is.
Yes, right.
I'm aging myself too.
Exactly. But that means that when I'm walking, I can trip over very, very small things because I can't adjust my foot enough. And so that, in combination with other symptoms, really pushed me to say, what was I going to do? Okay, how was I going to live? And I have chosen to say I'm going to live. I'm going to do everything that I can. I do things differently. It takes me longer. I have to do things a little differently, but I am going to do everything that I can do today, and I'm not going to worry about if I can't do it tomorrow, because tomorrow's tomorrow. I'll reevaluate tomorrow when I get there.
That's right.
So for me, a service dog was perfect. I know I'm jumping off of MS here.
No, that's fine. I was going to talk about how Asha helps you with this condition that you have.
So a lot of people with MS are going to use similar tools to the ones that I use, but they might be using them for different reasons. Okay. And service dogs are one of those. The most common type of service dog is called a traditional or a mobility service dog. And these are the dogs you see working with people in wheelchairs, canes, walkers, people having those other equipment and using the dog. And a lot of people with MS, as well as other conditions, are using that skill set that would come with that style.
So they would
of dog.
have a wheelchair and a service dog?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is an additional tool. It's about gaining more independence from your limitations caused by your disability. And I have a disability. I live with a disability. People say to me, you're not a disabled person. You're a person with a disability. I'm not politically correct about my personal life, I'll tell you that, because it's not what's important to me. It's important to me that I'm comfortable with who I am, that I'm comfortable using the resources I have to be as successful as I can be, and that means that I stand at a mountaintop and I said, I'm disabled. I stand at a mountaintop and I said, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to conquer the world. And I'm just going to do it a little differently than you are.
I love that.
So,
and what does Asha help you to do? So
Asha's skill sets are not as elaborate as some other dogs might be, but to me, they're critical. He's going to do fetch retrieval, which means he's going to use his mouth to pick items off the floor and put them in my hand when instructed. So he's preventing falls for me in that case. Also, because I can't feel things, if I put my hand down and I can't see what I'm picking up, then I really don't know that I have it. So he's picking up everything from coins to my lipstick to pens to my brace to shoes. Anything that's not too heavy for a dog his size to pick up, he'll pick up for me. And then, very critically, Asha is a weight-bearing balanced dog or a stability dog. And that means that I'm using this harness. This is working like a cane or a crutch.
Okay.
He and the harness combined are sized to me the way a physical therapist would size a cane or a walker to someone so that we're not risking injuries to my wrist, my elbow, my shoulder. Where he's also matched to me based on his weight. And this would be the only, one of the only things that you see in the service dog industry that requires a dog have a certain weight ratio to the person that they're working with. If the dog is too big, the person could get hurt. If the dog is too small, the dog and the person could get hurt doing this job. But as I walk, I hold on to this handle, and he is trained to balance and counterbalance me. So as I lean away, he leans away to pull me to a standing position. If I'm moving forward, he might push back on me. If I'm leaning backwards, he might push up from behind. All of this to keep me as straight as possible and keep me walking. And he's my third, so it's been very successful for me.
And so you had one of the first dogs.
One of the first of this.
MS.
Well, really of this style. I wouldn't say it was the first for MS because one, the mobility dogs are being used heavily by people with MS using scooters and wheelchairs and such, just on a different skill set. But he's very comfortable. He settles right in. But this weight bearing is more difficult. It's harder for training programs to produce because you've got a smaller window that you can match the dog and the person within as far as ratios go. It's harder to get a dog to take this kind of weight.
I was going to say, how heavy is that?
It's about 4 pounds.
All right, it doesn't seem like a lot, but wearing it all the time, every day, probably adds up.
So this is designed incredibly well for dogs. I've had a number of veterinarians, but I've also worked with students at WPI, and they really checked into this to confirm what we knew, which is that this is incredibly well designed to prevent any injury to the dog. There's all sorts of padding underneath it that's custom to the individual dog. And none of my dogs have had any hot spots, any wearing. None of my dogs have resisted it in any way. When you think about the heavy part, it's me. So I'm going to lean on him. I'm going to put weight on him every time I take a step. If I fall and I need to get up, I'm putting significant weight, which is why he should
him
to stabilize, to get back up. And that's why a dog like this should weigh a minimum of 50% of what the person weighs.
So if you lost, say, a significant amount of weight or gained amount of weight, would you need to change your dog?
So losing weight might not be as big of a deal. Height-wise, if I grew it, this is not a type of dog recommended for people who haven't finished growing because you can't adjust.
So for children,
I would not recommend a weight-bearing dog for children. I would recommend another style until they had finished growing. If I were to gain weight, I would be putting himself and myself at risk. So,
all right.
For me, he's a great weight management
there
tool.
You go. That's
to take
awesome.
better care for him than I did for myself.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. So tell me, so this kind of led you. So how did that lead you? May I call it a disability?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your disability and having the dog and knowing the benefits and how it's really helped you to achieve your goals. How did you get involved with Canines for Disabled Kids? Because you're the executive director. So how did this journey lead you to what you're doing today to help other people?
So I'd had my first service dog, Laddie, for about a year.
Okay.
And the honest truth is I couldn't shut up. I couldn't stop telling people. I couldn't stop talking to people. I was talking about what the ADA said, the Americans with Disability, that's the law that defines service dogs. I just couldn't shut up.
Because it was made
so
such a huge impact.
Impactful in my life. I went from falling multiple times a week to falling twice in 6 months. 6 months I fell twice when I was falling multiple times per week with my first service, before I got my first service dog. I was going places where people were saying to me, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's so great to have you back. And I realized in hindsight what I was doing was avoiding high-risk areas. I just wasn't going. I wasn't crossing the street. I used to work on Park Ave in Worcester. I wasn't crossing the street to go to lunch because I was afraid if I fell crossing the street, I couldn't get up and I'd be run over. So I just stopped going. So bringing Laddie into my life, April Fool's, the best April Fool's joke I ever got, but I get this dog who is amazing, and in 6 months I fell twice.
Wow, that is
and I think to myself,
incredible,
right? I think this is amazing. I start traveling. The program that trained my first dog, I was like, who do you want me to tell? Who do you want me to talk to?
So you kind of became an advocate and a speaker for
I
them.
did.
Mm-hmm.
And so their former executive, who's a friend of mine at the time, she said to me, so what are you going to do with this? Like, really, I want you to think about this. And I said jokingly to her, if your job wasn't full-time, I'd take your job. But I know I can't do full-time anymore. I just knew that about myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd take your job if it wasn't full-time.
And you did?
Well, in a way I did. She said to me, I know this other company.
Okay.
And they're looking for an executive. They're a young company. This is their focus, and they would be thrilled to have a part-time executive. Can I give them your name?
Wow, see how it all works out.
And I was hired. I've been 17 years now.
Wow.
So it's perfect.
So tell me what the mission of Canines for Disabled Kids is.
Well, the formal mission, I never remember, to be very honest with you.
That's okay. So what is the vision?
But
what
the vision really is threefold.
Okay.
We want to educate the communities all over the United States so that they are welcoming and supporting service dogs. We want to advocate and assist families and individuals to get the service dog that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And we raise money to provide scholarships to children who receive their service dogs before they turn 18, helping to cover some of the training costs.
So the Canines for Disabled Kids, the age is maximum 18. Is that, or do you?
That's going to sound it's a little bit true and a little bit not true.
Okay.
If you want a scholarship, you can't be over 18.
Okay.
If you want anything else I do, doesn't matter what your age is.
Okay, so even though it's called Canines for Disabled Kids, you help
adults
as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what exactly do you do? How do you help? So I have a child, say, with a disability,
Mm-hmm.
and someone mentions to me maybe a service dog would help.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
So hopefully you call me first.
I would. I'd call you, absolutely. And we'll talk about how to reach you after.
Definitely. I would start by saying to you, tell me first what your child's disability is and how old they are. Let's get some of the technical stuff out of the way. But then I want you to tell me, what do you want a dog to do for your child? Because I'm already formulating in my mind, based on your child's age, based on the disability, when it might be a good time to introduce the service dog. Because maybe at 5 it's a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea until they're 12, depending on what we're looking for in the skill set for the dog. But I also want to make sure that you're thinking about a service dog and that you're not thinking about one of two other styles of dog that we see in the United States. Assisted animal therapies, which is commonly called visiting therapy dogs. These are dogs working with an able-bodied handler most often, and they're going into places like nursing homes and hospitals, and fabulous role, but not service. Okay? Or another very common one is called an emotional support animal, or an ESA. And ESAs are dogs or other animals, to be very honest, that are there for the emotional well-being of the individual that they're there for. And they are quite simply a prescribed pet. They have a category that was developed so that people who live in places that do not allow that live in places that do not allow pets, they could have one of these animals because it's prescribed by the doctor who's treating most commonly their psychiatric disability, anxiety, depression, where we know that having an animal to be responsible for helps that person overcome many of those limitations, lets them get out into the world, come home and take care of that animal, and then go back out into the world.
So that dog, I know that dog, I mean, a lot of people say they have an emotional support dog. But are there laws that govern that?
Yes, there are. Those animals are governed under fair housing, the Fair Housing Act, and airline carriers. Those are the only two places that those animals, ESAs, have any legal protection.
Okay, housing and airlines.
Right. So you do not, your ESA cannot go to the grocery store, cannot go to the movie theater, your ESA cannot do any of those things. Okay? Your ESA is for your emotional well-being and care at home.
Oh, interesting.
Similarly, assisted animal therapy can only go where they're invited. And those are animals that actually get certification, and there's insurances that you can carry on them so that when they're working, they're covered in case they accidentally step on your foot or something. Those animals also do not go to the grocery store. They can't go to the can't go to the movies with you. They are not a public tool. They are a tool used in a specific environment.
Okay. And then the service dog goes with you everywhere because they're working.
Right. So a service animal, as long as it's playing by the rules, because we have to remember there's rules here.
Yeah.
A service animal has full public access to any place the public is allowed. The only places they're not allowed are private things that are private by nature or private by invitation. You'd have to make sure your service dog was included. Example, a wedding. If I get a wedding invitation, I make sure that they know that he's coming, and if he's not welcome, then I choose not to go. Right? I mean, he's going to lay all over your feet.
That's okay. No, he's working, and I don't know what the rules are in terms of my feet touching him and everything. So I'm trying to moving my feet away.
If he bothers you, let me know.
No,
if he doesn't bother you, enjoy the warmth.
I love dogs.
Sorry, but he's also not allowed in places that would be considered clean spaces, like surgeries. You'd have to have. And I know of one case where something extreme happened and the anesthesiologist insisted on the medical alert attending the surgery. But for the 99.9% of us, clean spaces they're not going into, and they can be rejected or banned from private events. Okay. Any other than that, they have to be allowed in. That being said, they have to be under control of the individual who's using them, the handler, whether that's, in my case, me, or in the case of a young child, it would be a parent that would be the handler. He can't wander around just because we're in a closed room. He can't just say, "Oh, I think I'll go check out the camera people."
He always has to be.
He has to be with me, under control. He's on a short leash. He is housebroken. If for some reason he were to accidentally break something, I'm responsible for paying for that repair or paying for cleanup, whatever that is. No aggression, no protection ever from these animals. They are not there to keep the bad guys away. If they do, they need to stop working. If something happened and they chose to protect you, they would need to stop working and you need to get a new dog.
Say that again. So if somebody broke into your house, the dog can't protect you?
Correct.
But that's what a normal dog would do, right?
Well, it's what many dogs would do, or they would jump on you and lick them.
Well, yeah, one or the other usually.
But dogs don't know good from bad. They know known from unknown.
Okay.
If he were to protect, you are all strangers. He would say, "Strangers, stay away." Now, what happens? First of all, that's a threatening situation. So every time I walk into a grocery store, I shouldn't be threatening other people.
Right.
But also, what happens when this September I called 911 because I was having a kidney stone problem, and the EMTs and police officers showed up at my house. If my dog says, "You're strangers, I won't let you near her," I would die. I would have died on the floor from kidney stones.
Saying. Okay.
So the rules are you can't use your tools to threaten other people. You can't use your wheelchair to bang into other people so that you can get to the front of the line for the next Star Wars movie or whatever. That's a threatening behavior. You can't pick up your white cane and whack people over the head because they won't give you the sale item or something. If you do those kinds of things, and we think about it mostly with service animals because they're living, but if you do those kinds of things, you're in trouble. You can lose the right to use that tool because you were aggressive and threatening with it. But the dogs need to have life pretty clear for them. And for them, that means that anybody can come into our space. And I'm okay. I will take care of it. It's not your job to take care of it. It's my job.
Your job is to take care of me.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
so I know we got off from what we were talking about, but no, that was fascinating information because I always wondered the difference between the different types of dogs. And I know that you can just go online, fill out a certificate, and you can say, I have an emotional
So I will
dog.
say this. if you really, really want to go online and you really want to feel like you registered your dog, which is not your service dog, which is not a legal thing at all, please don't. Send me that money and I will give you a tax donation for that. And you will feel better helping other children get real service dogs. And I say that a bit tongue in cheek, but it's true. I don't mind that people can go online and buy equipment. I think that that's a good thing, because I think for those of us who use service dogs, it's really important that we can competitively buy our replacement equipment. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. People who think that validates their animal, people who think that that's what makes their animal legal, are incorrect. They're people who are ignorant of the rules, and they are people who really don't understand what it goes into making this animal. At your feet is somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000, and that's in a 2-year period that it took to train him. So we're not talking about an animal that you can just say, well, I just don't want to put him in a kennel because I'm going to Disney, or I just feel better because I have him with me. These are animals that have been trained to be successful in a people world. We're looking at over a 50% failure rate in the industry. So the majority of dogs are not making it to this level. And we're looking at tools first. Mm-hmm. And that's really important. Yes, he makes me feel good, and it's wonderful to wake up with him in the morning. Mm-hmm. But he's my tool first.
So you can
he's my independence.
To live with this disease and be an independent person and achieve all your goals.
Exactly.
So I know that our time is already getting close, but I do want to talk a little bit more about Canine for Disabled Kids. And we talked about, so you have a child, they come, they meet with you, you kind of get a feel for what their needs are, and then what happens next?
So if it is a service dog that they're looking for, we talk about when it's best to introduce that skill set for that child so that they can truly be independent. And then I help them by looking at a number of different training programs all over the country. And I help them to select the one that's going to be best for their family, for their child. It's a bit like picking a college. I have over 200 training programs in my database right now, and they just keep growing. There's just more all the time.
So it's not like I come to your place and shop for a dog.
Right, no.
So you're actually connecting the family who has a child with a disability that could qualify for a service dog. You're connecting them with particular programs that may fit their needs best. And then from there, do they take it from there?
Well, they take it from there to a point.
Okay.
We offer scholarships to help them do fundraising for whatever portion of that training costs that the training program is going to ask them to fundraise. So that's a part we might do with them. And then after they receive their service dog, we give them ongoing support. So, for example, if it's a teenager in high school, I will go to their high school and I will educate their staff and I will educate the other students and I will do programming to make sure everybody's on the same page and welcoming of this dog and that they know what to expect, because I want the community to hold me responsible as a user as I'm going to hold them responsible as a community, and together the system works. So, and we do all that for free. There's no cost ever to the families. There's no cost ever to the schools when we go into the schools to do that kind of education. So there's no added cost to the services we give, and we're here for them forever. So.
That's wonderful. Well, you know what? I wish we had more time because I have so many other questions, but I think it was important for the viewers to understand the different types of dogs and what the responsibility of, like myself, when I approach a dog like this, because my grandkids always want to touch the dogs when they see them. And so when you see a dog that says it's a service dog, they're working. We don't touch them. We don't talk to them. They're working, and their responsibility is to you.
It's true. You say about time, and I know I'll get the hook here in a minute, but
no, that's okay.
But when I do a program in a school, it's about a 1-hour program, and I teach them about the different services, but I also teach them how to ask to meet a service dog, how to meet a service dog if they get permission to do that. And I have been places, I was on vacation on Cape Cod, and a little girl behind me started talking to her mother and said, that dog came to my school. I know about that dog. And her mother said, I'm sure a dog like that came. She said, no, that dog came to my school. And it was a school in Framingham, and I had been there about 6 weeks before. And her mother said, well, go meet the dog. And she said to her mother, you don't do that. And she walked her mother right
that's
through the steps.
wonderful.
And so that's an important part of the process as well. Education, right?
That's wonderful. Well, you know what? I wish we had more time, and definitely could have you back again and talk more about Canines for Disabled Kids. But do you have a contact number? Do you have a website that people can go and find some information? At least they have a little bit of knowledge now.
Absolutely. Our website is www.caninesforkids.org, and that is spelled out CANINESFORKIDS.org.
Okay.
Our general email is info@caninesforkids.org, and our office number is 978-422-5299. So anyway, reach out to us.
Perfect. And you know what, viewers, I'm going to have those numbers and website and everything on our show. So I am so grateful. And one last thing, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. My progression is at less than 1% per year.
That's wonderful.
I fly all over the country. I just got back from some trips on the West Coast. I'm headed to New Jersey in a few weeks, so you never know where we'll show up. We're out there to conquer the world.
Well, it's been a pleasure and an inspiration to meet you and Asha, and I wish you continued health.
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next.
Me either.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you tune back in next month. But until then, remember to live your best life every day starting today. This is Sherrie Keating. Have a great day.